So in number 5, if I want to solve for y, what do you think my first move ought to be? Take a stab at it.
Isolate the variable.
Isolate the variable, but what should I try to get rid of first?
Try to make them both over 5, like not over just one.
You could try to make them both over 5, but I can easily clear out that 5 by doing what? Not adding 10. Multiplying. Right? If we multiply both sides by 5, then we'll have what we need. And I'll show you. Let me see if my smart pen is gonna work. Kinda. Still a little lag. Multiply both sides by 5, because what that'll do is on the left side, it'll cancel the 5s, right? And on the right side, it'll create a product of 40. So we're looking at 2y minus 10, all right? So that's something that you've seen before, but what we have to do now, so that's not the dumbest thing that I was talking about. What I'm talking about is that you have to now state that the reason that you were able to do this is by using the multiplication property of equality. That's the justification for the first step. All right, now I'm going to let you off the hook and say, instead of property of equality, we're going to say POE. You don't need the periods. Just write PO. But this is something that the state wants. So the region's people. The folks who come up with the big exams that you take at the end of the year and design the curriculum that lead us toward that. They say that you need to know that. My response to that is, if they multiplied by both sides, multiply both sides of the equation by 5, I'm pretty sure they knew that. But they don't seem to care. They want you to write that. They'll say, justify each step with a property of equality. All right, so that's that. All right, so what would my next step in the solution to this equation be?
Adding 10 to 40.
Adding 10 to both sides. Very good. So, what do you suppose is the justification for that one? I think I heard it. Somebody said it under their breath. It was like, mission. Mission property of equality. Addition, yeah. Remember, theme. The theme of this whole lesson, dumbest thing we've ever seen in our entire lives, right? So the justification should also be equally dumb. Now, I do have to throw in the little obligatory apology that if you find this to be the most riveting thing that you've ever seen in your entire life, then I apologize for calling it dumb. That was very insensitive of me. But in the next step, it's 2y equals 50. What would I do to solve for y? Divide by 2. Now, what do you think? Yes, division property of equality. So y equals 25. All right. So if I hadn't gone through that with you, I don't know that you would necessarily be moved to write all that stuff. I mean, it says be able to justify each step with a property of equality. And you say, okay, yeah, and you do all the work. And then in your mind, you say, yeah, I feel like I'm pretty able, right? But then on a test, it says justify each step with a property of equality. You'd be like, thought I was able, now I don't know what to write. And it's just as simple as write the thing that you did and slap a po at the end of it. All right? So as annoying as that might seem, that's really all there is to it. All right? The reason why I skipped the do now problems is because those problems are basically this without writing the justification. So I didn't see the purpose, at least because I was working on getting the TV ready. It took a little time. All right, so let's go to the next, tackle a couple problems there. Let's look at number 9. Number 9 is a juicy one. It's got some extra oomph to it. All right, so we're going to justify each step, but sometimes that justification is not going to be a property of equality. Sometimes it's just going to be a property of numbers or an algebraic property. So in the case of, or at least in the initial setup here, we have on the right-hand side 2 times n plus 3. What do you think I might want to do with that? Distributive property. All right, so that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to draw little arrows to remind myself. And I'm going to write distributive property. Now, it's not a distributive property of equality because you're not doing something to both sides of the equation. All right. So then I'm going to rewrite. Now, on the left-hand side, what do you think I might want to do? Simplify. All right. Combine like terms. So we're looking at 2n plus 6 equals 2n plus 6. All right, so what do you think now?
Isn't it all real numbers?
All real numbers. All right, solution. Is that n? Well, we haven't talked notation yet, so n is the set of all real numbers. All right, if the left side ever equals the right-hand side, that means no matter what you put in for n, it's always going to give us equality. All right, it's always going to give us one side being equal to the other side. No exceptions. All right, plug in a 0, plug in a fraction, plug in an irrational number, you're always going to have equality. All right, so we don't have to worry about going any further from this. And in fact, we've addressed everything that we needed to. Now, bless you. If you went further, now this is the cautionary tale, if you went further, you'd have to justify further. So let's say you decided, okay, I want to subtract 6 from both sides. By subtracting 6 from both sides, you now have to write subtraction property of equality. If then you were to say, okay, I'm going to divide 2n from both sides, then you have to say division property of equality. By stopping here, you're kind of saving yourself from having to do all that writing. All right, does that make sense? Yes? All right, so let's do one more, then I'll set you free. Just generally, I don't like to do all the easy ones and then leave you with a word problem to do on your own, especially since we haven't done word problems together yet. So, I don't know. I feel like they're both about the same in terms of level of difficulty. So, which number do you like better, 12 or 13? 13. I'm hearing more of a excitement for number 13. Lucky number 13. Yeah, I learned recently that the origin story behind Friday the 13th is that it was originally considered a lucky day. and that somehow it became, through like popular media, it became considered unlucky. I don't know. Probably worth research. Because tomorrow's Friday the 13th, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Scary stuff. Scary stuff.
Spooky hours.
Yeah. Try not to think about that sort of thing. Even though, like, I convinced myself, no, the origin story is that it's lucky, so I'll be totally fine, and then I'll, like, stub my toe on something and cry. Yeah. All right, so whenever, and you know this from middle school, whenever you're solving a word problem, you always have to define your variable. So let statements, right? There are varying degrees of penalties whenever that happened. For me, it's just -1. You lose a little bit of credit. Right, so no berating you, no yelling and screaming. No, I don't know. I've never been in it. I've met like middle school teachers like once. They could be like the nicest people in the world, and I wouldn't even know. But I try to imagine that they're like these ogres that like lord over you as they take your hat off, you know, and things like that. But they're probably just wonderful people. You know, they work here, so they have to be. So 14 less than 3/4 of a number is -8. All right, so we're looking to find the number. Oh, I didn't turn my pen on. I was like, my pen ran out of ink. Yeah, it doesn't have ink. Find the number. So we're going to let x equal the number. Now, if you don't write the let statement, I'm going to be super nice about it, but I'm still going to take a point off. All right? So even for a problem that, you know, as you go through the course, you know, this is you know, the first full week of school. We're not talking about any heavy-duty material just yet. So you'll be like, even for this kind of problem, I got to write a let statement? Even for this kind of problem. All right? So 14 less than 3/4 of a number is -8. So what should I write?
3/4 x minus 14 equals 8, or -8.
Boom shakalaka is what we say to that. All right. So 14 less than. The less than part of it is indicating that it comes after.
Isn't that -8?
Is it -8?
Yeah.
Oh, it sure is. I just missed that. Comes after. I was caught up in the excitement of the fact that it was properly given as the expression on the left-hand side. Because first time ever. All my years that a class got it on the first shot. Because they usually see the 14 and they just, you know, it's so early in the school year and they just go for it and they say 14. Oh, wait, oh, give me another shot, you know, that kind of thing. So the fact that we came up with 3/4 x first, very, very exciting moment for me. All right, so we're off to a good start. So I'm going to add 14 to both sides. Now, word problems are my exception to the rule of justifying each step. And in fact, that's probably a bad way of saying it. The only time you're going to be asked to justify each step is maybe like on a test once or twice. All right. Every other time you could just go through the process of solving the equation, or when we get to inequalities, the inequalities. Right. So especially when you have a word problem, you don't need to write addition, property of equation because of equalities because you already have enough work ahead of you by dealing with a word problem to begin with. All right. So we're looking at 3/4 x equals, what's -8 plus 14? 6. Now, how can I get the x alone?
Times 4. Multiply by 4/3.
Exactamundo. That's what I was hoping to hear. So the 4/3 cancels with the 3/4, so the 3's cancel, the 4's cancel, and you're left with x. Because oftentimes people will say divide both sides by 3/4, which is fine, but the cleaner way of doing it, if you want to get rid of a fractional coefficient, is multiply both sides by its reciprocal. So the better answer is multiply by 4/3. All right, and so what do you get when you multiply 6 by 4/3? 8. And just remember, like, doing stuff in your head is a wonderful skill, you know, and I can't really emphasize that enough. I mean, you should always try to do something in your head. You know, like, intelligence is something that, you know, you're given, but you also can enhance it by working at it, all right? But you want to get stuff right. 6 times alpha y equals n over d. Pop in the 4/3, and then hit enter. All right. Bless you.
Bless you.
And in all honesty, sometimes I'm just not, I don't have the frame of mind to do the work. I just don't want to do the thinking. I mean, we've all had that moment where it's like, I just want to be mindless for a little bit. So if that's the case, your calculator can do that, because eventually some of these keys on the calculator, you're not as familiar with them now, but you will be. When they become really familiar, it'll be muscle memory. It'll be like, oh, I'll just hit that. You won't even realize you're hitting keys when you are hitting those keys. All right. So that's where I'm going to let you go.